Welcome to the Spookeasy. I'm Seamus,
And I'm Jamie.
and we'll be your scant-tenders this evening.
If you haven't crawled in here before, this is your new one-stop shop for all your horror needs. The drinks are strong.
But the scares are stronger.
All creatures of the night are welcome.
So pull up a stool, sink your fangs in, and let us serve up some of the best.
Or the worst this genre has to offer. On tap tonight, we have Weapons. This was released on August 8th, 2025, directed by Zach Krieger. This is starring Julia Garner of Ozark and the new Wolfman that recently came out from Blumhouse, Amy Madigan from Uncle Buck and Field of Dreams, Josh Brolin from The Goonies and Deadpool 2, and Austin Abrams, who I just realized was in Scary Stories to Tell from the Dark. He was the bully in that movie when I was looking this up for some notes for this one. And it looks like he's also going to be in the new Resident Evil film coming out this year, which is kind of cool. It had him on the cast credits on there.
That's what I've heard. Mm-hmm. This also, just to include a couple other names, Alden Ehrenreich. He played a young Han Solo in Solo.
Huh.
So some people don't even realize that I didn't realize that was him until after somebody said something. I was like, right. Oh shit, you're right. Mm-hmm. That is young Han Solo. But it also includes Benedict Wong.
Benedict Wong
from
is in this.
Marvel fame.
Yes.
Bunch of Marvel actors in this movie, surprisingly enough.
There is. He had a good role in this. I liked it. Before we dive in, we're just going to go over a little short synopsis of the film. When 17 third-grade students from the same class mysteriously vanish one night at 2:17 in the morning, the town and their families want answers. Little do they know what dark secrets lie within the truth of these disappearances. For our drink tonight, we have a Bloody Mary that's going to have Tito's vodka, Zing Zang Bloody Mary mix, because I'm not making it homemade, Tabasco, a little bit of pepper sauce, and then some black peppercorns. This was pretty much inspired by the amount of Campbell's soup all these kids ate while they were stuck in the basement, and for Aunt Gladys's fiery red hair and her demeanor to match.
This is what I like to call V8 with a kick. And I'm not a fan of V8, so this will be interesting.
When I was explaining the premise of this drink as a suggestion, I was like, it's kind of like a tomato soup in a drink form, so I thought it was pretty fitting.
Yeah, it's like cold tomato soup.
It is a little cold tomato soup-like. It's got a little kick to it, though, which is nice.
I mean, it's good, just not my type of thing.
A little...
Woo-wee!
It's nice to switch it up sometimes, but luckily I wasn't the one drinking the old-fashioned. I know that was much more up your guys' route for our last episode.
When we had the old-fashioned, that was a pretty good drink.
Yes.
But this is good, too. Just not my thing, I don't think.
So, before we get into our full review, we kind of want to get into our initial thoughts. Seamus, did you kind of want to do your initial thoughts first? Yeah.
Going into this, I knew that Krieger did Barbarian, and I enjoyed Barbarian. I thought that was a unique movie in a lot of ways. Told a pretty interesting story, and I thought it was relatively spooky. It was relatively unnerving. This one definitely kind of took me by surprise because I think it's a little different than what Barbarian was. I think this is a kind of a left turn for him when it comes to the movies we were used to seeing him do, but it also does have that indie flair, which always kind of lends itself to the horror genre because generally, these are out there stories with an out there cast that might surprise you. Mm-hmm. Like this one definitely surprised me quite a bit when it comes to the cast. I think when I first put it on, I was like, oh, Josh Brolin's in this. Oh, so-and-so's in this. And that's surprising because like it's one of those movies where like you don't expect them to cast a big cast, but they found a way to make it work. I don't know what these guys owed Krieger, but the fact that they were all in it, I got to give them credit for putting it all out there. But as far as the movie's concerned, I think it was well made. I wasn't crazy about it. I think the first time I watched it, took me a minute to kind of like really get into it. I feel like there really isn't a twist in it, I guess. Like, I feel like you kind of just see it. You kind of see this whole thing coming from the beginning. And obviously, like, you don't really expect who the bad guy is and where that kind of goes. But it's a little on the nose. Like, it's very much what you see is what you get, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. For your initial thoughts, I'm glad you brought up the cast again because I forgot to mention it when I was going over our little cast directory, but one of my favorites, Justin Long,
That's
also
right.
has a
He
little
does show
cameo
up
in
in
this
it.
too. He's one of the kids' dads, I'm pretty sure, that goes missing too. So
He is,
that
yes.
was fun. And he was also in Barbarian as well. So maybe Zach Kreger and Justin Long are buddies. But spoiler free, my initial thoughts for this film, I was actually really looking forward to this when I first saw the trailer. Enough so that Nick and I went to the theater to go see it, and me personally, I don't frequent theater too often because I'm easily distracted by voices or people eating snacks or whatever it may be. So I like to watch movies at home, but I was really excited for this one. So I was like, okay, you know, it's from, again, Zach Kreger. I really enjoyed Barbarian. So I was like, you know what, this is already looking pretty high up for me. So it had, I don't want to say it had standards to me because I feel like Barbarian wasn't the only other films I've seen from Zach Kreger, but I did still expect something out of it. Let's just say that. All right, so that was going to be our last call. Get your seats settled in, get your drinks. This will be now our spoiler section. No more spoiler-free content. We're going to start off by getting into the neat of our categories, what we thought was working with this film, what we enjoyed about it. Seamus, do you want to go over some things you enjoyed about Weapons?
Yeah, so what I felt was neat about this movie is I think it was a unique concept in a way. It was a unique way to tell a all too common story. I know that from interviews, at least as far as I know, Kreger wrote this movie kind of as a personal story. Growing up with, around alcoholism, it can leave a lasting effect on someone, especially a child. So I think it does a really good job of telling the story of dealing with that trauma, but through the eyes really of a child. I thought that it does a really masterful job of telling that story, but in a way that isn't so obvious. And then beyond that, I really do love the way this movie is structured. I was kind of expecting it to kind of follow Julia Garner's character the whole time, but when it kind of hard cuts to another character and it tells the same story, tells a different story from the same timeline,
The different perspective.
the same from a different perspective. I really think that's an interesting way to tell this story. I keep saying interesting, but it's a good word to describe it. I think
it is.
I think it's a different way of telling this story. It's unique. I don't think you see this too often. It kind of feels almost like a Trick or Treat in the sense that, obviously that movie was telling different stories in the same time.
Kind of like a hint of an anthology
But
aspect
it's
to it.
similar to an anthology,
Yep.
even though it's telling this, it's all leading to the same story, leading to the same end, but seeing it from different perspectives and kind of getting a different way to look at different characters. So, like, obviously, when you're seeing it through Julia Garner's character, she's obviously dealing with alcoholism to a point. I mean, she's dealing with, having a drinking problem, dealing with the fact that she is kind of an outsider here in this situation. I think there's a lot of the town is against her in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
She should be locked up until she tells us what happened.
So, like, seeing it from her perspective gives you a certain way to look at other characters. So the way Josh Brolin's character is very macho, very seems to be a leader of sorts in the town. Very
Archer.
Yeah, Archer.
Very manly
Very
name.
very manly. Very outspoken. Obviously, we see that in the town meeting or the PTO meeting, whatever, which is kind of like in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a SS meeting, or not an SS meeting. Sorry, an AA meeting.
AA meeting. Yep.
Excuse me.
I don't understand at all. Why just her classroom? Why only hers?
It kind of gives that feel a little bit. So obviously he has a very, outspoken personality. But then when you see the story or see the day through his perspective, you really see that he's just a broken man dealing with the loss of his son, dealing with, a failing marriage. There's a lot of things that are going into it that kind of go beyond the traditional tropes of a horror movie. But yeah, so it's kind of where the two things I really felt were well done with this movie is the storytelling and the ways they told the story.
I like that. So what you were saying with his character too, I feel like the whole tone of the movie was very melancholic, and you can kind of see that in those aspects too. And there was the one big jump scare that was unfortunately spoiled for me because I'm chronically online all the time, and then seeing the Aunt Gladys jump scare in the bed when Archer is trying to sell his imaginary flashback kind of trance-like state that he's in, seeing his son Matthew, that he loves him, and then she pops up, and I was like, man, I was getting real sentimental there, and then he just had to get me. But as a whole, I really liked the idea of all these kids going missing. No one knew what happened. It happened to be at 2:17 in the morning, and they like ran out of their homes. It's not like they were abducted or anything, because by the time this movie was filmed, obviously there was ring cams and stuff like that, so it was more set in the present day, so there was ways of seeing what happened to the kids. I feel like that left it open for a lot of theories and interpretations you could kind of conjure up to see in which way you think this film was gonna go, which the way I thought it was gonna go, it didn't really happen, but we'll get into that for one of our other categories. But to get into another one, I think one of my favorite aspects of any film is the score, and let me tell you, the score in this film was so good.
Any ideas on the table. Just finding weird sounds and trying crazy ideas that were completely out of left field, and sometimes we'd strike gold and sometimes we would completely swing and miss. And that was just a really wonderful way to kind of approach this thing.
There was a couple tracks that had Zach Kreger noted on them, which I'm not sure if he did it with Ryan and Hayes Holiday, were the two who composed the score along with Zach Kreger. It was dark, foreboding, really peaked at the right moments, kind of ambient and weird beats. I just really liked it, and it kind of built that suspense in parts with having, like you said, going back to these different moments and kind of seeing the same story played out from the different perspectives. It was nice to see that different tones and music shifts and not using the same thing over and over again to kind of...
Gave me kind of like an Ari Aster feel.
Yeah,
like if you've ever seen like an
it.
Ari Aster movie, which I mean, obviously if you're a fan of our podcast or a fan of our YouTube channel, then you are clearly aware of Ari Aster. And you know that Nick does not particularly enjoy those movies. I do particularly enjoy those movies. But this score and that part of it definitely gave me those vibes.
Yeah. I think the casting was really well done. Like we talked about before, Julia Garner as Justine. It's like you really kind of felt bad for her character, but then again, you didn't, because I feel like she was able to like really stand up for herself, and kind of it's like, I mean, she was kind of drinking her problems away, which, I mean, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, and especially in a situation like this. I mean, you're a teacher and everyone's coming after you thinking you're a witch because all their kids disappeared from your classroom, and I'm like, is that really the first thought that you guys went to, was she's a witch? So it's like, you gotta feel bad for her, but for everything that she was dealing with, I feel like she was a very strong character, I think is the word that I'm looking for, in this whole kind of shit show that was going on in this town and in her life.
I mean, every character has flaws.
Yeah.
I think that does a decent job of not giving you a Mary Sue or a character that's just like all good. Like she obviously does not handle her problems the right way. You know, whether it's drinking or home wrecking. But you know, but yeah, I think you know there's enough to her character that you sympathize with her, and you can see why someone would turn to alcohol or chasing men she can't have.
Cops involved with the case.
Yeah, poor cops who don't do their job very well.
Again, Amy Madigan's Gladys was just, and it's tough to say, because when you say you don't like a character, that's obviously when an actor and actress are doing a really good job, and I just have to say, everyone loves Gladys. She's an icon now, and I can't get into her. The whole time I was rewatching this movie for this episode, she was just irritating me, but that goes to show that she played this role fantastically, and as the time we're recording this, I'm pretty sure she won Best Supporting Actress at the Critic Choice Awards for this film, for Weapons, which is really great. You had mentioned the guy from Marvel, Benedict Wong. That was another fun little cameo, and I mentioned Justin Long previously as well. But Austin Abrams, I feel like James was a really good side character too. I feel like he had so much potential in unlocking the mystery of finding these hidden kids, and when he found himself in this basement after he broke into Alex's house, and they kind of left him in the dust, and it's just like he had so much going for him, but he was a really crucial part, I think, to the story, even for being a side character.
Yeah, and we're talking, just to remind me, this is the one who played the drug addict, right?
Yes, the long-haired, yep.
I mean, to be fair, I've never seen someone play like he played a drug addict about as well as I think he could have. I mean, like you actually believed he was a tweaker. Like he really did kind of give off the idea of someone who was like hooked on, you know, some sort of, you know, drug or whatever.
Yeah.
What'd I tell you, huh? What'd I tell you? What'd I tell you? I'm a big cop and I'm...
And I can imagine when you get cast for a role like this, they would obviously tell you, yeah, you're going to be kind of a drug addict, you got to do this, this, and this, or whatever. And I feel like he really played to the authenticity of
He
it.
did.
And
He definitely did.
And the scene where he pops out of the tent, and I think the cop's name was Paul, and he stabs him in the face with the syringes. I was like, oh my God, that's literally like my worst fear.
Right.
But did you have any more neat for some of your neat category? Any more?
Unfortunately, not really.
I was gonna say I had one more, so that's okay.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think the way it was filmed, the story that was being told, I think it was a pretty unique movie in that sense. But I think there's more for me that needs work than.
That's okay. I was just gonna say the last note I had for our neat category was, excuse me, also about the way this film was shot. Pretty much the majority of the whole film, and especially the end scene where all the kids are chasing after Gladys and smashing through glass doors and windows and houses and everything like that. And just the way that this film was shot, there's a couple jump scares that you could kind of see coming, I guess, with Gladys in the forest and the bed and stuff like that too. But the way it was shot, and I know I used this word before, but it was just very melancholic and somber, and like the dark tones that Zach Cregger used in Alex's house when they go to find him. And it's just very gray and dreary, and it just seems like this whole town has this big like black cloud over it, I guess. So I really liked his directorial style and the way that he shot this.
Yeah.
Okay, so now on to some things that we maybe thought needed a little bit touching up are on the rocks. I could obviously, the first one going off by saying this was way too long for me. I thought that, I mean, if you've watched any of our videos or reviews before, you know I'm usually an hour and a half girly for life. That's about as long as I could stay reeled into a movie, and this was tough. Seamus, you said that the aspect of them flipping from every different person, hated it, couldn't stand it.
Really?
Couldn't stand it.
Wow.
And it's funny because I usually like that kind of sort of like anthology style, but I feel like it just really, really dragged on when we were in the theater watching this, and I started seeing the more chapters and like I was like, are they gonna go through all 17 kids in this movie? I was like, I knew this was like an over 2-hour movie, but man, this was long. So I thought it was a little repetitive, and I feel like they could have, like, as much as I said I didn't like her character, I would have liked to see more of Gladys's backstory, you know? I feel like they kind of dove into it a little bit, but not really too much, versus showing everyone else's perspective of the same thing that happened over this supposed month-long time period that these kids have been missing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So what's something that you had on the rocks?
Well, you keep bringing her up. I did not like Gladys at all. I did not like the reveal of the bad guy. I felt like the best parts of this movie was like the lead up to it, and then after they reveal who she is and how it happens, I was just kind of like, oh, that's it. And it felt flat for me. Like, it felt really, really flat. And I couldn't buy into it. I was hoping for something a little bit more sinister, a little bit more supernatural, and you just tell me it's a voodoo witch doctor lady who snaps a twig and cuts some blood off, cuts some hair off. I don't know. There were parts of this movie that like I was like, ooh, that's genuinely unsettling. Like when she falls asleep outside of the house and the person like is in the car and cuts her hair.
Yes,
like,
that was creepy because she passed out drunk in the car.
Right, like that, like.
And she come out like wobbling, like out of the house, like Silent Hill moving, like. Ooh,
yeah, the way the door opened and she comes out of the house, like that. Is like unnerving. But I was kind of hoping for more supernatural than we got. The fact that it was just like a weird, creepy old lady who just wants to live forever. Yeah. Really kind of was like, oh. Okay, well, that's cool, but I'm not a huge fan. No,
and I'm so glad that you brought that up as your first point, because that was my whole biggest thing with this. I thought it was scarier when I thought Gladys was, like, a figment of your imagination or, like, an entity. Like, obviously, I already talked about the bed scene where she pops up in Matthew's bedroom, but then in the middle of the woods where she's like waving at James like in the background. I was like, ooh, that's kind of creepy. Or when she like pops up on the ceiling when the guy's looking up at the ceiling when he's in bed.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is creepy. I get it why people were hyping her up. This is kind of cool. Mind you, I saw this in theaters after it had already been out for a couple days, so I did see some spoilers. But I was like, okay, that's fun. And then realizing it, I was like, I mean, I guess they kind of intertwined it because I was wondering, I was like, why did they automatically think that Justine was a witch? Like, and I guess it ties in because turns out Gladys was kind of a witch and, like you said, wanted to live forever. I thought it was a really weird take. I really didn't expect that's where this was going.
Yeah.
With how the movie had panned out from the beginning to kind of the middle, honestly. But yeah. What was another one you had?
I think he
talked
realized
a lot on that one.
I think he relies too heavily on comedy.
Yeah.
And I think there's, I mean, I'm not one for, you know, obviously I'm okay with levity in a movie. Like, you need some level of levity just to kind of keep everything from being dragged down or bogged down with too much just, like, constant dread or constant, like, you know, just melancholy. Like, it's a good word that you used. But I think that this one, I think a lot of the comedy just didn't work for me. I think Gladys was, like, again, she's supposed to be the bad guy, but then, like, she's, like, half the time she's just there for laughs, and it's hard for me to be okay with it. I don't know, I struggle with it. I struggle to get behind the fact that, like, this kid is, like, taking care of, like, 18 children or 17 other children and his parents, and
going to the grocery store and buying tons of cans of soup, and no one
right,
for a month straight, and no one's questioning it. They're like,
anything.
where's
right?
your parents? It's not like he's like a third grader, so he's like, how old are you in third grade? Like 7, 8 years old?
Like, it takes...
like, he's a kid.
So, like, my thing is, it takes a drug addict breaking into a house to steal valuables to buy more drugs, to find, like, to actually break the case
to be
open.
like, something doesn't look too right here.
So, like,
yeah.
I know that, like, I think a lot of it's done to, like, benefit the story, but at the same time, I don't know. And, like, there are genuinely good moments in the movie, like when Benedict's character, the principal, is, like, finally lost, like, he's finally been taken by Gladys, and he comes, like, running down the hill,
and
doing
he, like,
the thing.
bashes his husband's face.
Like,
that's
like,
crazy.
genuinely unsettling.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that is unsettling. It's just everything around it, I just couldn't get behind.
Yeah. It was, and I also am not a big fan of comedy and horror that much unless it works. I mean, there's certain things, I know I've said it before, but, like, I like that. I like the goofy horror, like Killer Clowns, like intentional comedy, I should say, not intentional horror. I apologize, but I thought that kind of veered me away from it as well already, just because I'm not a big fan of that in general. But I thought there was points, and like I had brought it up before, there was points that was getting, like, really deep and dark, and then you would have a silly Gladys jump scare, or you would just have something like after that scary scene with Gladys in the room, when Archer wakes up, he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's just like, that kind of ruins it, and then the theater laughs hysterically. So I feel like I really just had a bad theater experience with this movie too, so that kind of diminished it a little bit for me as well. But watching it at home, I will say, I enjoyed it a little bit more. But another thing, no one wanted to check the only kid who didn't disappear, his house.
Right.
And, like, they were just giving him a lot of chances when the principal was like, yeah, we're going to need to talk to his parents. Like, I can come over and this, and this. And she's like, oh, no, not necessary. And then Gladys, like, shows up at his house, and she's like, oh, I could just really use some water. And they're like, all right, come on in. And then she asks for, like, a bowl instead of, like, a cup of water. And immediately after that, I would already be like, yeah, you got to go. Like, this is weird. You were already weird to begin with, and now you're, like, coming to my house and, like, doing it intentionally to be like, oh, by the way, I just wanted to speak to you about Alex and the family and the whole situation. Like, what an odd thing to begin with. But I guess it was cool because it led up to kind of us seeing, I don't want to say, well, it kind of was the beginnings or the makings of Gladys and what she does to control these people or control these kids. So I like that whole, the blood sacrifice, and you gotta have the hair, and you gotta wrap it around the stick, whatever. But my thing is too, is like, how did you let him get that close enough to you, or you let her get that close enough to where you should just snip your hair just like that?
Right.
And it's just silly little things like that.
But again,
and like,
so, like, that's why I said, like, the scene where she does it to Justine's character, like, to Jerry Garner's character, like, that's creepy.
yes, that was understandable.
But then, like, they don't do anything with it. Like,
this one you just had real bad luck. Yeah.
Like, I would rather her have never really interacted with the townspeople at all. Pretend like she should have been more of like a just, even if she was human, like more of a demonic demon type character that like that came from the shadows and attacked from the shadows. But the fact that they were like, hey, here's a weird old grandma aunt that is now apparently a voodoo doctor.
I think voodoo mama juju. Yeah. But I think it's because that's a good point that you made, because they did make her kind of seem like this goofy, silly character, I guess. But then, like, you have the scene where she's at the dinner table with Alex and his parents are sitting there and she's like, I could make them eat each other if I wanted to. And then she was like, watch this. And they start, like, stabbing themselves in the face with forks. I'm like, okay, this is getting pretty dark now. This is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I like that. But then it would just get overshadowed again by another goofy moment or something like that for me. Did you have anything else for our On the Rocks?
That was my major complaint. I think that calling it weapons doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, outside of the fact that it's literally the fact that she turns these people into weapons.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even bring it up, but finish your thought. I'll mention it.
But like, there's just like it's just super. It's just there's no secrets in this movie at all. Like it's just all out in the open. It's like, this is why this is happening.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave anything for the audience to figure out. Or to learn.
Yeah. And you would think with how it like started off too, we were like, okay, this is like, it seemed like it was unfolding like a story, but I feel like the book was shut. There wasn't really anything too much explained, but we'll see.
Right.
Zach Cregger's been in talks of making a Aunt Gladys prequel, sequel,
really?
whatever kind of thing. Yeah, so we'll see if that...
He's busy doing Resident Evil right now.
If that happens, so. I was going to say he's a little busy, so it might be a while. But one more thing for our On the Rocks, and that was the confusion of the big gun in the sky over the house. I don't know how I didn't bring that up to begin with, because to be frank, when we were in the theater, this really did scare me because it was very dark in the theater and I was focused on the house, and then I looked up and I was like, oh my god, what is that thing doing there? And I know it was supposed to be like this really, and I'm not trying to sound insensitive, like this really deep meeting about like mass shootings in schools and kids dying and all this kind of stuff like that, but I just thought it was another element, like we've been saying, that kind of just felt silly and out of place and ruined what was kind of this like deep dark moment where Archer is kind of in this trance-like state trying to find Matthew, and I was just like, and it read like the 217 for the number of kids, whatever, whole kind of thing. I just really thought it was an odd choice and just got real artsy and kind of took a different direction for it, I think.
It was really out of place.
Yeah.
And for me it was I think it was less so. I think it was just because the movie's called Weapons, she treats them as weapons, and maybe there was a tie, like some sort of tie to mass shootings.
I was trying to read about it, but I was like,
but to me it's like there are better ways to do that, and that was just really weird and off-putting.
It was an interesting way to convey a point, I guess, if that's what he was trying to do.
Well, we're just getting to about closing time, so we're going to give our final thoughts about Weapons. What do we, where we're kind of sitting as a final idea. So, Jamie, why don't you start? Give us your final thoughts, and then I'll follow up.
Well, overall, what I thought was possibly going to be my favorite film of 25 completely fell flat for me. The score really saved it, though, and it was probably the only time I didn't fall, or almost fall asleep during the over 2-hour runtime. It was good for what it was, but the story just didn't reel me in like I thought it would. And I have to say, because I've seen this debate precariously online in recent times, but I do think that Barbarian was better than Weapons, despite the mass agreements that I've seen saying the opposite.
Yeah, I will agree with you.
Nice, okay.
I think my final thought would be, I've seen a lot of discussion about how, can we compare the two movies? And I don't think you can compare them. I think that they are very much their own movie. I don't think there's there are obviously things you can kind of tie together because it's the same director, same writer-director. Obviously, there's going to be parallels between the movies. But I think with this is a very different direction for him, and I think I do prefer Barbarian only because I think that movie was a little more out there, a little more wacky, and again I think it was constructed in a way that kept me kind of on the edge of my seat, whereas this one, once I kind of knew what was going on, I was like, oh, okay, well, now I'm kind of bored. And that's, I think, for me, the hardest time I have with this movie is that I was just bored. By the end of it, even with the crazy, climax and the insane ending and her getting just ripped to shreds by these kids. Like,
it was overstimulating at that point. I needed that kind of energy in the freaking first 45 minutes to an hour.
Right, exactly. I think this is where a slow burn can go wrong. I think I like slow burn movies. This movie definitely suffered for it, and it was unfortunate because I wanted to like it. I just couldn't get into it.
And this movie's been very, very highly praised. I was looking up the stats earlier. This has like a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm absolutely impressed that this many people liked it. But hey, what do I know? This is just our opinions, So I do always like to like the other of whatever the opposite.
Well, 93% means 7% of critics didn't like it. So
I was just going to say there was some people who didn't like it. So exactly. But now we're going to be getting into the classic Our Fear and Beer rating. Fear rating being how scary we thought this film was, and then the beer rating being how much we liked this. So for my fear rating, I will say, I had to give this a 2.5 out of 5 for my fear rating. There was a good couple jump scares. I feel like the soundtrack really added to the kind of ambiance of the film to build the suspense in some parts. I mean, I didn't think it was super duper scary. I think the whole witchcrafty kind of element, like I had mentioned, took away the scariness for me when you kind of realized what's going on here and what the story is actually about and what Gladys is. Yeah. What was your fear rating for this?
My fear rating, I'll give it a little bit more. I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
I think there were a couple, like you said, well-earned jump scares. There were a number of unsettling parts of the movie, but as a whole, I don't think it really did much as far as scaring me. And again, I've said before, I don't necessarily get scared the same way a lot of people do when watching movies. I need to be made uncomfortable. You need to make me feel almost like I'm squirming, and not just in the sense that it needs to be disgusting body horror, but it has to be enough that I'm like, oh, this is really unsettling. I could see this happening. A good example of that is Substance. That movie is incredibly unsettling.
I still got to get to Nick to watch that because we should all review it because I really loved it.
It is a great movie.
Yeah.
But something along those lines is, it's incredibly unsettling, even if it is weird and out there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I would say it was decently scary, but I wouldn't say it was the scariest movie I've ever seen.
I will say unsettling, I think, is a better word to use than scary for this. There definitely was some unsettling parts.
Yep.
For my beer rating, this one was tough. Because if it wasn't obvious, I wasn't a huge fan of this film. But like I said, it was good for what it was. So I'm going to have to probably give this the same rating that I gave my fear rating. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Kind of go 2 for 2 on this one.
I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah?
I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5 as well. I think that it's just below average.
I was going to say, not enough for a 3, but...
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, wouldn't say it's a bad movie. I wouldn't say it's a movie that you should avoid at all costs. I think if you're a fan of indie horror, give it a shot. You might like it. You might find some things about it that, you can appreciate. I know that we did. But I think overall, I think it's just a movie that suffers from either trying to be smarter than it really is or, trying to do some headier topics, some smarter topics that it just didn't really work. It was too simple, I guess, for me.
All right, and then for our final category of our Spookeasy tonight, before we head out, we have our top shelf and our bottom of the barrel. So basically, ranking of what we thought this film, Weapons, would be kind of categorized as. And what I had was this going to be I wouldn't say bottom of the barrel because I didn't absolutely hate it, but I think this would be a type of drink. Nothing too crazy, nothing too special, but decent.
Yeah, I think we're one of the same mind tonight. I think this. I
really thought you would like this movie a lot more than I did.
And I wanted to. I really did. Not saying that I would wanted to like it more than you did, but I wanted to like the movie. Yeah. And I think that and again, I did like it. It's not. It's just not something I'm going to go back to. So, in the idea of is it a drink? Well, it's a well drink. I think it's you're looking for something that isn't a typical I'm gonna watch the 80s slashers again, or I'm gonna watch the same movie I watch all the time. It's if you're looking for something different that isn't gonna punch you in the gut when it comes to scares, but at least give you something to feel, unsettled.
Yeah.
I keep saying that word, but that word works.
No, it
with
does.
the lights off. I think this is definitely a movie to give it a shot. Think give it a shot and think about how you feel about it. Yourself.
Yeah, definitely a better watch experience at home. I think too, when you kind of have that own quietness of your humble abode. And
I do feel like it's probably a better movie to watch with friends than not with friends. It's one of those movies that I would rather watch again with a group of people.
Yeah.
And generally, I'm one like you. I'd rather watch a movie by myself, at least for the first time, because I want to experience it without the outside noise of other people. But I think this is one, if I had to watch again, I'd want to watch it with a group of people.
And I was talking all this shit about it, but honestly, when I was watching it by myself the other night, I was like, ooh, this is a little scary, honestly.
So now that we've discussed weapons, you don't have to go home, but unfortunately, you can't stay here. I can't stay here. I don't live here.
Thanks for stopping by the Spookeasy.
Come back soon to see what spirits we pour up next. And if you want to leave us a tip, just hit that like and the subscribe button. That is, more than enough money for us.